So I wanted to talk this week a little bit about how my journey as a parent has led into where I am with my fitness journey. Because I think it's taken me some time to work on the idea that when you're a parent, in my experience, fitness often isn't failing because you're lazy. It tends to be because it's not so easy to build it into your week. And there are so many reasons why that happens. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about how I've been able to get from a point of not really having any fitness in my week through to where we are now as a family, actually. So then the problem comes from this modern version of family life and modern version of society and parenting, where we're all so busy. Our kids are so busy. Pressures on them to be using their time in what is seen as productive seems to be higher. And likewise, the expectation upon us as parents, in a way that's often good, is for us to be really aware of them and supporting them and motivated towards helping them. But that can go too far. And especially when you throw in your work expectations and everything that's required just to keep things running around a house and all that kind of stuff. The danger is that it can create no natural space for yourself in anything, let alone perhaps putting yourself towards fitness. I know that for me, in my early fatherhood, I think I was very busy with professional life, with a demanding and emotionally demanding job. And I wanted to make sure that my wife had all the support possible when I was home. I was working full time. So really, I was so focused on all of that that I didn't get the time to really think about myself within that in a useful way. I didn't carve out the time, because there's always something that you can find yourself feeling you should be doing instead. And I guess what I reflect on looking back, and I've thought about this quite a bit recently, is how actually living and working in that kind of way did not necessarily do much to help my capacity as a parent, as a husband, because I was pushing myself so hard and I was so overwhelmed and I wasn't giving myself enough time. But actually, I reduced my capacity to be useful in that way. I could be functional, but not necessarily so helpful. And I've really come to recognise the importance of trying to carve out time for yourself and make that work. It's still definitely a journey for me to try and do that perhaps better, and particularly not to feel guilty about it, but maybe that's for a different conversation another time. So I think the journey that I went on that helped me with this was, it started really, I think my eldest was probably had a 5 and a 3-year-old at home, something like that, when a former colleague of mine who had got in touch to see if they want to go out said, "Oh no, I can't, I'm playing football. I always play football on a Monday night, and that's kind of sacred to me," was pretty much their words. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And because I like football, can't really play it very well, particularly back then, definitely couldn't play it very well. And it's debatable whether I can now. But I said, oh, do you ever need another player in that? And then, long story short, I ended up being part of a regular slot then. And what that meant is that suddenly having a structured activity of that sort that happens at a particular time where other people are expecting you to be there, so it's not one that you can put aside or deprioritize quite so easily because you know that other people are expecting of you, really helped to actually mean that I went from really doing no exercise at all to having something that was happening on a weekly basis. And I enjoyed it because I do actually like football. And when I tried to make running a habit, I thought I couldn't run. Tried to make gym a habit, I just didn't enjoy it, didn't really know what I was doing. So the Monday night football became a thing, and I've played that Monday night football consistently now. My youngest is 10, so it's probably 11, 12 years, I think, I've been playing football regularly on a Monday night with a bunch of guys who I enjoy seeing, and it gives me really interesting fitness, and I like that. So I think if you can find something of that sort, whereby in your family timetable it almost takes the same status as the kids' clubs, you and your family know that that's where you're going to be and what you're going to do on whatever time it is. I guess the other thing that probably was a bit of a step change for me was about when I was able to find that I could use time that already existed within the family timetable for my own stuff. Admittedly, this is something that comes more as the kids are getting older and are doing clubs where you're not expected to be available and on hand as much, and they tend to be a little bit longer. So particularly for me, it's when my eldest started, was part of a swim club. And as he moved up through the squads, he was training 3 or 4 times a week. And I noticed a number of other parents disappearing off once the kids had started and coming back not long before the kids finished. And then I realised what they were doing is they were taking that time to go out for a run. And it awakened to me the idea that, in fact, that time for our kids' clubs is already carved out of our family diary. It's already carved out of your thinking. And if you can make that something that feels for you and that you can build in a fitness program around, then it takes away that barrier of guilt about what you're not doing. There is a third element to this, which if you're in any kind of job where you could work from home or you have to do work from home, those times that you're already carved out for the kids' activities suddenly became time for us to do a bit more work. The problem we have is that in these kind of jobs, more often than not, the work is infinite. It will never stop. You'll always have more to do. So you can always use that time to do it, but it will never actually finish things off. And it's took quite a lot of mindset for me to get to this point. Giving yourself the permission to use the time for you. And I'm talking about using this for fitness. Of course, another important thing here is that it might be that that's your time for rest and recuperation through reading a good book or listening to your podcast. All of these are important, but it's about giving yourself permission and using the time that's in your family timetable already, the structured world that we seem to exist in, actually making that yours, giving yourself permission for it to be for you and not for other people's expectations upon you. Of course, there's a nicer element as well, which is about the shared activity that you can do with your kids. So park runs are a great example when you've got kids who are willing to go on the park run with you. And then the moment that comes when your child then becomes faster, when they're able to run on their own and you realise that, they are actually genuinely better than me. That's always an interesting moment, of course. But those family moments are great, and finding, if you realise that actually you can embrace the sport your kids are doing. I've been involved in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, climbing I've been doing quite a lot of recently because my lad's doing it and it's a really nice way of connecting together. So I think these are the ways that I've found have made work for me to get to a point where fitness was something that actually was part of my life again as an adult. And we all know how important that is. Of course, I want to give the reality check because you know that I'm doing this whole project whilst I'm on this kind of career break and everything. And I'm not for 1 minute saying everyone can do an Ironman. Just carve out the time while your kids are at guides or whatever, because I know this is going to be a really intense lot of training, and I'm not quite sure yet how it's going to work out as my career goes forward, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about in a future video, to be honest. And of course, all of our constraints differ depending on the age of kids, the work we've got, who you've got around you. For single parents, my hat goes off to them every time I think about how hard it is being a parent when you are in a relationship as I am for the kids that we've had. I really think for single parents, I acknowledge, of course, it's an even bigger challenge to try and find this time, but giving yourself that permission to actually ask the friend, ask the parents, whoever it might be, to give you the time that allows you to do something that is for you, whether that be fitness or whether it be reading, whatever, as long as it's not just yet more cleaning. The whole process that I'm trying to say that has been made a difference for me is that it's not necessarily about finding the time. It's about claiming and structuring time that already exists in that kind of family diary and making it work for you and working with the people around you to know that this is something important for you and that it can make a difference. So I hope that might have some resonance for some of you, I guess. Interested to know whether other people have found similar things. If you like that video and want to hear more about my story over the coming years, please make sure that you hit subscribe on the channel so that the videos will always appear in your feed.